everyone, welcome back. You know, I've been doing videos of large format photography, but I thought some of you might be interested in the Hasselblad SWC. Now the Hasselblad SWC, as you see here, is a medium format camera by Hasselblad. It's a fixed lens. It's got a 38 bio gun, and it's not commonly used, well, as an architectural camera because it doesn't have shifts or tilts or rise. But it has a very wide lens and it's actually distortion free, which is fantastic. So today I thought I'd shoot one of my projects, which is the Church of the Good Shepherd at Dundee Road in Singapore with this baby. I'm just going to show you how I'm going to load the film. I'm going to be shooting color film today, and maybe share what some of the tips and what I go through when I photograph. Share with all of us how I do architectural photography with this bad boy, which is the Hasselblad SWC. Hope you enjoy it. So the SWC is very modular. The back comes off, and basically it's just a lens attached to a body that provides enough space for the lens to focus at infinity to the film plane. Alright, we're going to see how to load this thing. Just spin it around. So over here is where you see the dark slide. And what you do is you lift this up and turn it, and this comes off. Right, we're going to look at how to load this with film. So this is the roll film back, and there are two spools, one for your take up and one for your film to go in, right? So we try to do this in the dark, or at least in shade. So what happens is you put the roll of film this way, and you pull this out, and it goes along the back. But just be careful. You want to get it under this little piece. And when you just turn this, it comes up and down. All right. You want the film to go under this piece. Pull it around and slot it into one of these slots. Right, just slot it in and use this to turn. Just going to make sure that it's well focused, and then you turn this until it takes it up. Turn it around. There's a little red arrow here. Right, what this red arrow says is as you turn this, it will get to a point where the start aligns with this arrow right down here. And all you need to do is to kind of put this back into the camera and you're good to go. So once you've got the film loaded into this, what you need to do is to slot that into the back, just like that. And then you turn this till it clicks. Make sure the dark slide is in. Come over to this side. And what you're going to do is you're going to just wind it clockwise until it stops. And then you see one in here. And close it off, and you're good to go. This slots down first into the two catches here, and the top clicks into place, and we're good to go. So the other thing you're going to see me use quite a bit when I shoot architecture on the SWC is this ground glass attachment and a viewer. Let me explain how this works. So usually we take this back off. I'm just going to set it aside. and we insert this ground glass as so. Now what the ground glass does is it basically gives you a way to look at the image directly from the lens. But to be able to do that, you need to be on bulb, and you need to open the shutter fully. Usually we'll set it to, I don't think you can actually see the image, but you can just barely make it out. And then of course this helps. I can slide this in, and I can actually view this in through the viewer to look at the ground glass, and it actually focuses, and I can actually check the composition exactly how I want it before I take it off and put the film back on and make the image. So I work with the SWC almost like I work with a large format camera. It's almost like a view camera, because I'm pretty particular about how my composition is, but I enjoy it because it's still a lot easier than lugging around a 4x5 camera, and also I can use this for handheld shots if I really need to. So let's go and see what we can do. So I'm actually perched up on this structure, or rather under this structure. It's actually the baptism pool, but the baptism pool is covered over when it's not in use. So this is where the baptism takes place, in front of the foyer or the open terrace. And this structure is here as a means of screening and privacy for the baptism events, so people in the opposite block don't get to see it. It's a requirement by our local government, so that was the way it's designed. So what I've got is my SWC now perched on a tripod. I've got a leg up on the seat and two here, and I'm trying to make an image of this scene where I've got the two obliques of the facades coming in. I've got the oblique of the pavilion, and I've got the oblique of the facade coming together right in front of the cross feature. So I've got the ground glass on, I'm looking through the viewer, and I'm more or less happy with my composition. And sometimes I'll take the viewer out because I almost like to see it from afar, almost like looking at a large format camera. So I realized that when I take the viewer out, I would prefer to have a bit more sky in my image. So I'm going to tilt that up a little bit more. That will emphasize the converging lines. And I think I'm more or less happy with that. So I'm going to take the ground glass off. And put on the film back. Before you do that, always remember, after you've released the shutter, make sure you cock first. Because once you put your film back on and you realize you need to cock, and you do so, you actually waste a frame of one frame. So don't do that. So the other thing I need to do is to take an exposure. So the whole building is pretty much in shade because it sits opposite a really tall condominium project, and I'm shooting 160 film, and I'm going to just take an exposure like this because the light falling on the building is almost the same as what is falling on my light meter here now. It says 115 f11, probably shoot at 111, f11 at 1/15 of a second. So let's set that. Of course, take out your dark slide. Nothing moving, so anytime we go is fine. And that's our first image, and I'll show that to you in a short while. Let's head on to another one. I don't know why the best vantage points always end up next to a lamppost. It doesn't make for great videos, but hopefully it makes for a great shot. So what we've got is the church building. It's white and it's got a series of lines and obliques that we use as a design feature. So once again, same as when I shoot large format, I will be leveling off the camera first. So I usually would level it off on the top of my plate. It's probably a bit less applicable because sometimes I do tilt my camera up when I'm shooting with SWC, primarily because it doesn't have the kind of shift and rise capabilities that the large format gives me. But nonetheless, let's see what kind of image I can get with this. So back comes off, shutter open, aperture to the widest, so that we can pop on the ground glass. That's this way, and check out the composition. Yeah, it works. It's not the best. Probably need to give it a bit more to this side. Now, if I'm exposing for the building, now ironically, usually when you shoot outdoors, you get the same sunlight falling on your whole subject in architecture. But in this case, I've got the church in shadow, and I've got bright sunlight falling on the background, which are these tall housing development board buildings, HDBs. So I'm gonna expose for the church, but you know it's gonna blow out the background. I'm gonna give it a bit of tilt up because it's not gonna work very well if I shoot it level. Let's try it level first. So close the shutter, cock it, replace the ground glass with the film back. Same procedure, set your exposure. I'm going to shoot 1/8 at f11. Dark slide out and go. And we'll try another viewpoint from right across over there. Level off my camera first, but I've got a feeling for this shot I'm going to be trying to tilt my camera up a little bit. So this tree that you see here used to be really lush with a huge crown, but they've recently trimmed the trees and I have no idea why they did that, but we're going to work with it. The good thing about that is that it now exposes the building behind it, while previously it would have been totally obscured by the crown. It's quite a lot of tilt up just to get that whole tree as well as the environment. I've released the shutter, and again, taking out the ground glass, I recock the shutter so that I don't waste a frame of this roll film. Back on, set exposure, ready to go. That comes off. Maybe wait for a bird to fly by or not, and make that exposure. So we're going to try this shot. I'm directly in front of the church. And, well, I usually have a viewfinder, but silly me, I forgot to bring it today. So I just have to deal with the ground glass, and thank God for the ground glass, right? Otherwise I'll be shooting blind. Let's just open it up again and see what that looks like. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a bit of the trees on both sides, and then the sky, and I'm getting this horizontal over the build at maybe the bottom 1/3 of the frame. It's a little dim. I mean, I'm going to expect this to be blown out because at the exposure of the building at 1.8 at f11, the rest of the sky is going to be super white, super blown out. But that's the best I can do. So I'm going to go with that and see what we can do. So passerbys as we go along. I'll set the exposure 1/8 f11, ground glass off, and let the car pass by, and bang, there we go. Okay. So I'm in front of the existing church. This is the original worship hall of Church of the Good Shepherd, and our extension is on the far right hand side of it. I think it's very beautiful, especially the kind of stone columns that you see, the three on the right, and the old kind of like features of the fins and the concrete with the pitched roof. I think it's beautiful. Let's see whether we can get a shot here. Oh, it looks beautiful. The sunlight is excellent. So the SWC comes with its own bubble level on the top of the camera over here. So it's very useful. I can actually use that quite a bit whenever I want to shoot. I'm getting the shadows of the fence and the sunlight coming in. So I've got that tongue wood there. I've got a bit of the pitch roof. I don't get the cross on top, so I'm just gonna see whether I can push this up a little bit and get a bit of that cross on top. It's quite a bit, and it does then converge everything. So I'm gonna go without it because I like that composition. It's beautiful. The light here is very different from what we had earlier. It's direct sunlight. Let's just get an exposure there. So I'm doing 125 at f16. Let's do 125 at f16. Release the shutter, cock it. 125 at f16. We should be good. Let's make an exposure. Level it. Let it go. That's one exposure. And I'm just gonna cheat a bit and tilt this up a little bit without having to recompose or without having to put the ground glass up. It can be a pain sometimes. Just gonna do a second one with the cross. There we go. Dark slide back in. Put the ground glass back on, and then we can go searching for another image. Right, let's put this back on. Open it up so we can go searching for another image. All of me trying to find beauty in the mundane. So I've got the back of the building, and I've got the air conditioners, condensing units. They're nicely positioned, centered to the window. I'm going to see whether I can actually get an image with... looks pretty good. Got the aircon condensers on the ground. I've got some shadows. Oh, looks nice. Just a tad. Yeah, it's a nice image. Now, exposure is important here because if I'm going to expose for the highlights, right, it's going to make everything very dark. I'm going to give it maybe, it's 125 at f11. I'm going to give it maybe 1.5 stops. 125 at f11. So maybe I'll give it 1/60th at f11 instead. I'll give it about a stop and a half. I should be able to get a bit more light, and then we can correct that in post. Never thought a film photographer would say that, right? But in today's age, the reality of it is all the images are still scanned in, and when you see it, you're actually seeing a digital version of it. The light's just gone down a little bit. I'm just going to make that shot quickly. That's one. I'm just going to open up even more and see whether that will make the picture look better. In fact, maybe I'll go with a darker image, f16, just to get it all moody. Yeah. So thank you for watching this video. If you come to the end, thank you very much. I've tried to actually bring, because I do hear quite a lot of people asking about the Hasselblad SWC, and it's a very fantastic camera. It's hard to come by, it's also very expensive. But if you do find one, do consider picking this up. It's a little modular system that really photographs images very well. It's the wide angle lens is very free of distortion, which is fantastic for architecture. I do find it a little bit limiting compared to a large format camera where I have tilt shifts and risers. This one doesn't, but what this does excel in is interior architecture. I'm going to send a link to some images that I've done with another church project for the interiors, and I shot all the black and whites in that one with the SWC. So I think it's still a very handy camera. It's nice to carry around. If you want to shoot it with a viewfinder kind of from the hip, instead of putting it on a tripod, I think it excels in that as well. It's a great street camera. I think there's some fantastic Japanese photographers who run it with a large flash on the streets and shoot in-your-face kind of street photography, black and white stuff. But this also works well as an architectural tool, so I do recommend it. And if you want to see more architectural photography, whether it's film or digital, or if you want to see something in Singapore that you can't quite travel to, I mean, if you can't come in, let me know. Drop me a comment, and I'll see if I can oblige and maybe shoot that architecture, or I mean, even if it isn't my own architecture, I'm happy to photograph it. And let me know, and I'm happy to hear from you. So do like this, do like this video, and do subscribe. I love your support. Thank you very much. Have a good day.